everyone, and welcome back. It's been quite some time since we have done an episode of Keeping It Real in Carroll, and we're back. So we are excited to be back, and as you know, the theme of this is getting you a behind-the-scenes look or getting you information that you typically wouldn't hear about things that are going on in Carroll. And I think it's a great idea as we delve into a lot of areas that we are working on across our county. So I guess most of you are shocked that my first Keeping It Real in Carroll is on public safety. So many of you probably just fell off your chair, but that's what we're going to do today, talk about public safety. And one of the things that is the biggest topic right now that's happening in our county is the challenge that we're seeing with our volunteer fire service. So I think most everyone that has been paying attention over the last, I guess year or two would know that we are at a place right now which is sort of we're getting up to the peak of that mountain and we're going to start to go down the other side. And one of the things that I have continued to say is this has got to be a joint effort from all parties that are involved, because this is something that Carroll has not seen before. So we're really making sure that all the partners are involved in this. One of those partners being the Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services Association. Without their help in this, we wouldn't be where we are, quite frankly. And I'm going to introduce you to a guy that I've known for, I don't know, quite a few years. I've known Tom since he was shorter than me. How's that? Does that work?
I think that works.
Tom Coe has had the wonderful responsibility, I think wonderful is good,
Yeah.
of leading the charge with a core group of folks that were put together as a work group to get us to where we are. So Tom, welcome to the first Keeping It Real in Carroll.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for the invitation. I really enjoy the opportunity to be here.
And I will say, I would be remiss if I didn't say congratulations to you. You and I have come up through the ranks of the fire service for many, many years. And while you do a tremendous job in the New Windsor community and are very well known over there, and you've got a family tradition at New Windsor, which is one of the things we'll touch on when we're talking about the fire service here in Carroll. But you have recently been named the interim chief of Frederick County Fire and Rescue, and congratulations, my friend.
Thank you
that's
very
good. How's your hair?
It's falling out. It's great.
Yeah, tell me about it, okay? But your specific title, let's forget about the chiefs and all that stuff. You are the chairman of well, give us a little bit of history as how we got to where we are today with the committee.
So moving through the budget process in 2017, the Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services Association worked with the commissioners to form a joint work group to really chart the path of the future of the fire service in Carroll County. The volunteer service in Carroll County has, for decades, provided absolutely wonderful public safety service to the citizens of Carroll County. And as society has changed, as lifestyles have changed, that's been an increasing struggle. So the Volunteer Emergency Services Association recognized that and wanted to hit that issue head on with the support of the commissioners. So we formed a joint work group. It exists of representatives of all levels of the volunteer service and several county government directors. And for the last almost 2.5 years, we've been working to move this initiative forward, which effectively is the creation of a combination fire service in Carroll County. And when we say combination, we're talking about a joint effort of both the volunteers as well as an influx of career emergency services providers working side by side to jointly provide service to the citizens of Carroll County.
And let's hit that combination thing with the great air stuff here, because that's critically important for folks
Absolutely.
to remember that this is combination. Over the last year or two, when this topic has continued to heat up, pun intended, how you like what I did there, has continued to heat up, and there's been more and more in the paper and on social media. There are those out there that say, okay, well, it's the end of the volunteer system in Carroll. but that is anything but true.
Yeah, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
The volunteer system in Carroll County has very deep roots in really being a community anchor point, in addition to providing emergency services to the citizens of Carroll County. And the volunteers don't intend to go anywhere. The volunteer providers in this county take great pride in providing that emergency services to their neighbors, and they plan to continue to provide that. However, there are some stress points that we can start to correct now to lengthen the service of the volunteers and maximize what we can gather out of them. And the creation of this combination service and the influx of career staffing will help ease that burden on the volunteer workforce.
So when we talk about volunteer and specifically volunteer firefighting, and let me back up just a moment. The word volunteer is not as meaningful as it used to be. You look across all of our nonprofit communities, the Lions clubs, the Kiwanis clubs, the Rotary clubs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's getting tougher every day to find volunteers. But it's different in the fire department. And I've said this many times, and you're right there with me. I joined in 1976, and when I threw the application in, got voted in. I'm not sure why they did that, but maybe. I think it was my good looks. But anyway, the chief came down the driveway. I was still living at home then. I said, well, what do I do now? Well, when the siren blows, come on down because we could use your help. And honest to God, I did that 2 days later and found myself on the back of a fire engine with no training at all, including how to ride the back of a fire engine, with a coat and helmet that barely fit and boots that were kind of my size. Now,
everything back then was OJT, on-the-job training.
And
right?
I got to tell you, man, now I think the first thing I went on was a brush fire. Well, okay, that is what it is, and you can't get in a whole lot of trouble, but you could. I guess my point is this. Man, have things changed when it comes to that.
They sure have. Training in the fire service is paramount, and it's now a requirement prior to even stepping on a fire engine or an ambulance. It now requires hundreds of hours of training in basic hazardous materials response, in CPR, basic firefighting skills, and your EMT class borders on 200 hours now. So the days of just joining and hopping on a piece of emergency services equipment just doesn't exist anymore. That issue of ongoing and initial training requirements coupled with societal changes of dual income households and all the social events that exist today that didn't exist in Carroll County in the 50s and 60s and 70s have really made it a challenge for folks to give so freely of their time in all volunteer aspects, but especially the volunteer emergency services realm.
Yeah, that's a huge point. And the bottom line too, Tom, is that not that it wasn't dangerous back then, because I can remember an incident that I was on in the late 70s, early 80s, where I had some burns as a result of being in a flashover in a kitchen. After I had been trained, let's point out. But, man, it's dangerous. It's not like going to a Lions Club meeting, and no disrespect to those folks, but there are so many factors and things changing at split-second intervals when you're on the scene. So finding that guy or that gal that wants to belong and wants to give back, oh, but wait, you're putting yourself in dangerous, really, really challenging situations. That's a tough one. For free,
It's
by
a
the
true
way.
commitment. It absolutely is. And we're fortunate that there's still folks that come out and want to give so freely of their time to put themselves in danger to help their neighbors. But those numbers are becoming less frequent, right? And there's some other things that are driving the needs for the change in the fire service. So right now, 13 of our 14 fire departments are employers, right? So there's folks on a volunteer basis that are managing payrolls for 20 to 30 to 40 employees, payroll amounts that are $500,000 to $2 million a year, and they're managing those on a volunteer basis.
So the role of treasurer, you're saying, has changed.
Absolutely. The administrative functions of the volunteer fire service have vastly changed. And the concept of folks that want to help their neighbor in their time of need is not foreign, right? People desire to help their neighbor when they have that need. However, the desire to be a volunteer human resources manager and those associated liabilities really caused some stress within our service to find people to fill that role. So there's more efficient ways to do business, and CC Visa is very glad to work with Carroll County government to try to foster those ideas to kind of make our system more efficient and release some of that administrative burden from the volunteers as well.
Yeah, a lot of folks forget that. Now, I've pretty much held every position in the volunteer fire service, I think, that exists except for treasurer. President, chief, EMS captain, all that stuff. Man, that has changed as well, because the level of responsibility that's required, and you touched on it with the HR issues and the money that's changing hands, that's just a lot to ask of folks that want to step up and be an officer in one of these organizations. Man,
So
it's
I'm
tough.
a fourth generation fire service person in New Windsor, and my father, who's responsible for getting me into the fire service,
Right.
has served as the treasurer at New Windsor for almost 50 years.
Good grief.
And the amount of change he's seen from just paying bills to now being responsible for payroll and insurance and all of those other things. Serving as the fire chief for 9 years, there's no doubt in my mind that the busiest job in the fire service today is that of the treasurer and keeping the business aspect rolling.
Yeah. So when you go into New Windsor, if you don't know the name Co., you're probably going to be in trouble, right?
Well, they're going to wonder where you came from.
So one of the other things is that I want to get to real quick here, and you and I could banter back and forth all day, and I think it's because not to put a feather in our caps, but you and I have lived it, we've breathed it. I'm a career retiree, and we genuinely we love the fire service. So you and I could go on all day long, but let's quickly get to, okay, where are we now? And what are the next steps? And I think we've had some recent meetings that have been very positive. I want to say that. There's been a little bit of contention every now and then over some details, but for the most part, we are in a place right now, I think, that we're really starting to move forward. And that includes the most important thing that I see right now, and that's getting a person.
Yes. So probably before we talk about where we're at, it's important to talk about where we've come over the last 2 years. So based on our form of government here in Carroll County, it required the work group to partner with both the commissioners as well as our state delegation to push some enabling legislation through Annapolis. And that was in 2018 to empower Carroll County to have some say in the fire service that's provided here in the county. So in 2018, that enabling legislation made its way through the legislature in Annapolis, which was a huge accomplishment, and really took a year of time to build up, to get the consensus, to get the wording the way we wanted it, and to make everyone comfortable.
And by the way, kudos to you and all the rest of the gang that served on that group, because you were in Annapolis as much as I was during that time period, and I applaud all of you for being dedicated to make sure that got through in the manner that it needed to get through.
We're really a team, and that work group that has been put together between Visa and the Carroll County government has really worked hard to really instill consensus and consensus building in this process. So once that enabling legislation was completed, the work group went full steam ahead into drafting a county code to present to the commissioners that outlines the future of the fire service, how it's going to be constructed, who's going to administer it, how do the volunteer corporations fit in, what are their roles and responsibilities, and really preservation of their role within the county code was hugely important. So the next year was really built around building consensus amongst the 14-member corporations of the Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services Association. To get that consensus, we formed an advisory committee that was made up of 2 members of each department, and they met regularly to really get updated on and provide input to the efforts of the work group.
Right.
So where we sit today is just, I guess, last week.
Right.
The commissioners voted to move a job description forward for a director of the fire rescue service in Carroll County.
Right.
Now that director will have responsibility over the entire service, career and volunteer, and really drive it forward into the future. Behind that, once the director comes on board, is the county code and the Charter for an Emergency Services Advisory Council.
Right.
So that council will be made up of stakeholders in the emergency services community, both career and volunteer, some citizens representatives, as well as governmental representatives. And that'll really be a sounding board for that director to try to make sure that there's buy-in into the system for all of its stakeholders. So we're excited to be where we're at today. There's no doubt that there have been hearty discussions throughout the way, but those differences of opinion are what really drive us to a good work product. Those differences of view help engage good conversation to get us where we need to be.
And it goes to the point of, look, this ain't easy. We knew this. It's something that we're not accustomed to here in Carroll. It's been the volunteer fire service for years. It's going to remain the volunteer service. I want to make sure that everybody gets that point. But now it's going to be infused with those folks that can make sure that we're getting the right people on the right equipment at the right time of day so that we can best serve our citizens. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, there's a couple levels to this issue, right? So first, it's the efficiency of bringing the employees from the 13-member departments together under one umbrella. So there are career employees in the stations today, but we're going to manage them more efficiently and use them more efficiently. And then there's the whole leadership angle of making sure that there's positive oversight and a single picture moving forward of how the fire service moves together as a unit. And that's extremely important as well.
Well, we're running up against the time here. So, listen, the first thing I got to say to you is I thank not only you, but everybody who has been in the trenches and working on this. More to come. It's not over yet. Let's be clear. We got a lot of things to do yet. But I think we're at a good place right now, and I applaud the fact that your group and Visa has identified the fact that 14 different personalities, and that's our 14 fire companies, have come together. And for the most part, now there are still we've still got some issues, a couple there to work out, but for the most part, everyone's at the table. And I think that's huge. And you guys did a yeoman's job. And so probably should note everyone, but if we did that, we'd be here for another 25 minutes. So, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that you've done a ton of work, your whole group, and we truly do appreciate it. So let's see where we go now. We're gonna, from our standpoint now, we've got this job description on the table. We hope to post it very shortly. It takes some time to get things done. We got to make sure the I's are all dotted and the T's are crossed. Then there'll be a time period of how long it's posted for, I hope, maybe 60 days, because I want to make sure we throw that net out there and get good candidates. And then the hiring process, and we'll see where we go. So changes are coming, but I want folks to remember that the volunteer fire service will remain in Carroll. It's just going to look a tad bit different than it has before, and it's in the best interest of our citizens.
Absolutely. And
it's not something that we demanded. It's something that our volunteers asked for.
Agreed.
That's the other important part to remember. So.
And we should get the word out that volunteerism and volunteers are still needed at your local fire station.
Exactly.
So stop by your local fire station, throw an application in. We still need your services for the infinite future.
Yeah.
So we thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. So first, keeping it real in a long time. I hope everybody tunes in and continues to. I will continue to have these great shows. A little bit different format here today where we did this because I thought it was necessary to get some of the details out. So we weren't standing out under a tree or on the back of a fire engine today. We were kind of in this format. So, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say kudos to all of our folks here in county government that have made this set work. We spent $1 million on this set. Now, all of a sudden, now everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute. No, this is all virtual reality, which is incredible. And again, goes to how smart our folks are here in the county and what resources they have and the great things that they do with the resources that we provide them. So this is kind of cool. We actually look pretty good in front of the green screen, don't we?
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Well, they wouldn't.
What about me? Me?
They wouldn't want to know what we're actually wearing right now.
All right. I'll see you next time on the next episode of Keeping It Real. In the meantime, make sure you get out, support our volunteer fire companies. Man, there's shrimp roasts and bull roasts and bingos and everything else happening. pay attention and go out and support all of our great folks that make sure they're providing that service in the county. Tom, thank you. My best to you and your in future endeavors.
Thank you, Commissioner, and
And,
thank you for your support on this initiative.
Yep, and we'll see you next time on Keeping It Real in Carroll.
Volunteers are always needed at your local fire station. Stop in to not only help your community, but become a part of one.